Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Tonight it is Monday, 26th of January at 7 p.m. and we are in Waverley Borough Council's in the Bury's offices. We have a packed agenda tonight. So let's kick off, please, with firstly, you are being recorded, everyone, but I think you all got that. Apologies for absence and substitutes, please.
So I'm aware of one apology. Sorry, I'm aware of one apology, which is Councillor Keane. Councillor Hess and Weldon might also be apologies too. I'm
aware that Councillor Weldon has submitted his resignation from this committee, and I await news of who has been nominated to replace him.
Right. You've corrected me, yes.
Councillor Murray.
Sorry, Chair. I didn't know that Councillor Hess was sent his apologies. I'm happy to substitute as I'm sitting here, if that's okay, or is that too late?
Oh, I'm really sorry, Councillor Murray. If only we had known. We could have, couldn't we? Never mind. Well, of course, we will be, I'll be watching out for your raised hand, so, okay. Now, next item, we'll take minutes, please. Alex, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we have circulated a set of minutes which, on the chair's feedback, we have looked again at the quality, and I'm content that actually they're not at a quality that I would be content with seeing you sign off this evening. So there's an issue in that, which is the draft recommendations that were put together in the draft minutes were incorporated into a report on the Cranley report that went to exec earlier this month. Now, based on the chair's feedback, having double checked, I think that we need to revise the recommendations that went into that report. I don't think they were accurate enough from what you agreed here. And apologies, there's nothing I can say apart from sorry, we didn't do a good enough job on writing that up. So the draft minutes that were being relied upon for drafting the exec report weren't accurate enough. As it happens, the Cranley matter, for its own reasons, is going to be coming back to the executive again anyway. And I've got a statement from the officers about that, which I can let you know about, so why it's coming back. It's, from our point of view, it's a stroke of luck because it gives us an opportunity to correct our mistake in democratic services and put an accurate set of recommendations into that updated report. So if I read you the statement I've got from the officers in the team that are producing the report on Cranley, it says, and I'm not going to be able to answer questions on this because, as you might imagine, it's not my area, but it does, of course, raise questions. I'm sure it will in your minds. So it says, a recent internal review of our Section 106 agreements has provided an updated assessment of the likelihood of certain contributions being received. This work identifies risks that have not previously been visible. To ensure our financial assumptions remain transparent and realistic, the projected Section 106 income for this project has been revised, resulting in a reduced funding total. Given these changes, the report will be reconsidered through the committee cycle, first by the executive and then by full council on the 25th of February, so that decisions are based on the most accurate and up-to-date information. You might well ask whether that affects the timeline for Cranley. They're still expecting to open the centre in winter of 2027. What it means, just for the limited matter of the minutes and recommendations from the previous meeting, is that those updated recommendations can go into the report that's going to the executive, which supersedes the previous report. So my apologies again that we didn't do a good enough job on the draft minutes, and with Christmas and not managing to communicate effectively over the Christmas break, we put recommendations into that first report that weren't quite right. But as I say, it's clearly it's convenient for that limited purpose that we can have another shot at it. So the updated recommendations will go into this next report. And we'll have conferred with the chair over making sure that those draft recommendations are accurate at that time.
That's the one. Thank you, Alex. My query is that obviously we all assessed Cranley Leisure Centre in December as a scrutiny committee based on previous numbers as well. So there is a question mark there as to whether it needs to come back to us. Can I leave that with you to come back to us on that one, please?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, sorry.
Because we don't know how, we don't
Yeah.
know how much impact that has on the numbers.
Yeah, so
So-
I mean, in short, I don't think there's an opportunity, as in I don't think there's a committee meeting that you could bring it to. We've got a meeting that we're booking on the 9th of February, as you're aware, for various items you couldn't fit on this agenda. There comes a point where we have to prioritise and decide that if you want to bring that item back as well, you'd need to take something off your agenda in order to make time, because scrutiny can't just see everything, it needs to prioritise.
No, I'm just, I don't know if committee members would agree that all the decisions we make based on the premise that we have the right information in front of us. And of course, that situation is different. Do any other comments councillors have any other comment on just on that point? Because it will help guide my decision making on whether we bring it back or not, or ask for it to come back or not. Thanks. Councillor Gale.
Yeah, I think if we were scrutinising something in front of us, we should have had the correct figures to actually do a decent job. So obviously we've looked at something with incorrect figures, and I think perhaps it should come back to committee so we can once again just make sure we're 100% happy with what we're putting forward.
Thanks. Councillor Barker-Lomax.
Maybe we could suggest like a 10%, margin of error. So, if there's a small delta, maybe it doesn't matter, but if there's a meaningful delta, then we should reconsider it.
Yeah, shall I ask to see the papers and see what the actual differences are and then come back to you as a committee via email and we can decide? Thanks, that's noted, Alex. Next item, can we just discuss declarations of interest? Does anyone have any? Next item, are there any questions from members of the public or questions from members?
Not that we're aware of, Chair.
I'm sure they'll have their own questions in a minute. So I would like to now actually just bring forward item number 11, the committee work programme, if that's okay. So that's page 337 to 342. I note that there weren't actually very many of us actually here in December. So I think you may have seen some quite significant changes on the work programme. I know that we had an issue that we wanted to discuss, which was more generic. Councillor Gale, do you want to outline your concerns?
Yes, please, Chair. We see today that the joint ONS committee, which obviously is a split between Guildford and Waverley, have cancelled their next meeting because there's lack of anything on their agenda to discuss. Whereas we are being bombarded now with things to scrutinise. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think we are giving our residents as much attention to this as we should be giving them. Since this committee was just brought down to 1 from 2, I think we're being given very long agendas. We need to go through all these things, absolutely 100%. But I think we're having to pop extra meetings in. Things are not quite going as they should sometimes. And I believe this is a case for having a look again at bringing back 2 ONS committees so we can split the work regime again as it was before.
Yes, I mean, obviously this is, I would echo your comments in that this committee has double the workload. We have double the workload and half the number of councillors who were scrutinising it before. Councillor Lawton, I think you were going to raise concerns as well on this point.
Well, I'm just really concurring. I think Maxine has covered the issues. I think if we go open debate on it, I think we'll cover any other issues on it, but those cover my main concerns. I think we got far too much on one side and far too little on the other. Just picking up some comments just before this meeting started, there seems to be 2 issues. One is that whether this committee should be able to accommodate, have more resources to support what we're trying to do, or the second issue is, should some of the other resources from the joint committee be redistributed to share the workload? I understand there are 2 different briefs between the joint committee and this one, but maybe that can be reviewed as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, as chair, I'm echoing your feedback and concerns. Councillor Peter Martin?
Thank you. I would support that issue that has been raised. I think it was a mistake, certainly for this financial year, to reduce the number of committees from 2 to 1. I would propose that we make a recommendation to go back to the executive, that they should reconsider this and maybe bring it back to full council to reinstate 2 committees. I think as a fallback, if that can't be achieved, then we should look at increasing the number of meetings of this committee so that it can fulfil the role that it has. Part of the reason for making 2 into 1 was that there wasn't enough time in the agenda, but it would appear that that is what's required, and I think that's what we should do.
Thanks. Councillor Murray, and then I'll just let Alex respond, and we'll close this up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As a member of the joint Guildford and Waverley committee, I agree. I mean, we haven't really done very much, and we're waiting for things to happen. So I think there is an opportunity, maybe, and I don't know whether this is that those 8 councillors who were on the other ONS committee, and there's now 3 of us who are left at on the Guildford one. Maybe we could ask that cohort of those ex-ONS members whether they would like to be substitutes for this committee, so that they could, if you have an extra one on the 9th, as you've just said you are going to do, maybe those councillors could come along to do that, because I'm here this evening because I don't have an ONS meeting next week, so I feel like I should come to one of these. But thank you.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, isn't it? Because some of those councillors who have dealt with services before, certain reports, they may have more experience, and the ones who are, this is predominantly maybe more the financial side, they may want to focus on those. I don't know how that would work constitutionally. Alex, you were going to comment.
Okay, so first of all, if you want to make a recommendation that you think the decision that was made by council should be reconsidered, then there's some factors to take into account. Normally, you wouldn't relook at a decision the council have made within 6 months, but there are some circumstances where that can happen. Importantly, it wouldn't be a recommendation to the executive. So if you want to do that today, I think probably it'd be more appropriate to recommend it to the Standards Committee that deals with constitutional matters as a starting point, and you would expect that the member working group on Constitution working group would look at it before that. And I'm sure that they take on board whatever feedback you have about how it currently feels. I think one thing I should say is that it's still very early days. When you change governance arrangements like this, it always takes a little while for something to bed in. And members in your debate at full council were kind of finely balanced on a judgment call about whether it was the right time to do it immediately or a little bit later. So it, first of all, wouldn't be surprising if actually it was something that you wanted to look at again or have more discussion about. Second of all, it wouldn't be surprising if actually for a little while it took a while to settle down, and we've responded to that. So as you just said, we have booked an extra meeting for this committee in just a week's time. So we're taking approaches to try and help the chair and the committee manage the amount of business that they'd like to transact. And we certainly can look at ways to continue to do that. So if in the short term we're seeing an increased volume of work, it might be that the right thing to do is to allow for that volume of work through mechanisms that don't require revisiting the decision or changing the constitution again. Just so in practice, members are doing the scrutiny work they want to do. And because ultimately a change to the constitution will take some months to get through a system and so on, by which time you might be pretty close to that May line where you all agreed in council that either way you expected the structure to change. So what we don't want to do is presume a process, but if you want to start by making recommendations about what the committee currently feels, it would be right, or if you want to reflect back to a body that you feel like this isn't working, I think you could make a formal recommendation if you want to, and you could agree it or even vote on it, but make it to the Standards Committee or possibly to the Joint Working Group on the Constitution first, I suggest, and then we can go from there. But in the meantime, we'll just keep being reactive to the volume of work and try and make sure that we're not getting in the way of the business the committee wants to do.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, having made a decision, as you know, it's a finely balanced decision, we are now in a situation where fixing this decision will take a matter of months, which will therefore not solve the problem that we have in the immediate near future. So I think we should put forward a recommendation anyway, and I will also raise this separately, both with the CEO, the monitoring officer, and the leader in writing, that this committee is not working as it stands, and the workload on this committee is very great at the moment, and above, I think, what's reasonable for us to be expected to deal with. And we would like the decision to be reconsidered, and we'll leave that for now. Can I take a vote on whether we all agree with that at the
Sorry,
moment?
can I just check
Yeah.
what the exact wording is of a
Yeah.
recommendation?
So the wording is that we, as a committee, we feel that the current structure is not working, and that the workload is too great for this committee, and that's not reasonable for members to be dealing with. We can finesse that.
How about this? If we were to put something like, the recommendation would be that the committee feels that the current structure is not working, the workload is too great for this committee, and beyond what's reasonable for members to be dealing with. Therefore, recommend that the joint Constitution Review Group
Revisit the decision.
Okay, revisit the decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for information. You said some months to progress. I think we need to understand, is there a minimum time? It can't go faster than, because of the administration and the democratic process it's got to go through. I think we just need to be very clear as to what the earliest time it could be accommodated, because otherwise we might be talking about this in 6-9 months and we still haven't made any changes. So we need to set some expectations. Thank you.
Yes, I don't have a specific minimum. I'd need to go away and look at committee dates and figure out how they line up. I think what I've tried to give is an indication of sort of a likelihood that it.
Say some months.
Yeah, I did. I was probably said something like that. I mean, put it this way: if normally a change to the constitution would go through the Joint Constitutions Review Group, then to standards, then to full council. So you might imagine there'd be some weeks between each of those. I'd have to look at the schedule to understand. And that's after we've given consideration to whether there's a problem with retaking a decision that's been taken very recently, which might present an issue. I'd need to go away and reflect on it first. I'm sure there would be a way, and if the will is there from all members to give council the opportunity, then we can find a way to put that on the agenda. But I don't want to commit until we've given it more thought.
I'm just concerned what the other side of the story is. As you said earlier, the joint committee workload is going to increase. So just at the time when we may say, oh, we're going to redistribute some of the workload from the joint services, that's the time when they're going to say, but we now have that extra workload. So it's just kind of trying to balance what the changes are and when.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I'm just going to wrap this up, otherwise we'll be talking about committees for all evening. But I think we've raised some valid concerns, and can you leave that with me in terms of working through what's the most efficient way of getting out of a pickle because of a council restructure, which is causing problems for us all.
Chair, would you like to ask?
Oh, shall we all vote on the recommendation? Are you all happy with that recommendation? Do you?
Agreed. Yeah.
Everyone's agreed. Thanks.
Is there anybody again?
Anyone against or abstaining? No. Okay, so let's start in terms of just going through the committee work programme. We've got, I've got some work from 16th of December here, still on.
Yeah, it's got historic things on it too for information.
Okay, right. So today, let's just go forward to January, 26th of January. Today, we're discussing the budget, capital strategy, housing revenue account, and corporate strategy, and the Q2 performance report. Well, that was discussed, so that's part of it as well. And then let's talk about the February meeting. So this is the additional meeting. We at the moment have got the Ombudsman complaints report. We have, which was shared amongst the committee, and we agreed that we'd like to discuss it. Community asset transfers, so that's retrospective because it's already gone through and should have come to the committee but didn't. and also incoming new community asset transfers. And then February, we've also got the affordable housing delivery for land to the rear of 69 High Street. And then the water quality monitoring report, and that has been referred because of issues raised by Councillor Barker Lomax in the Audit and Risk Committee. So thank you for flagging those. So that again is a very full agenda potentially for the February meeting. Does anyone have, Councillor Gale?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. What was the reason for the community asset transfers not coming to ONS?
It's not clear. I received an email from an officer saying that it should have done, and she was asking it too. It was put on the programme and then it didn't appear. And then the next thing I heard that the executive had already agreed it. So it's a mistake. Alex, do you want to expand on that at all? I don't think I've really, it should have been there. We should have scrutinised it. And yeah, Councillor Lawton.
Is there any reason why these ones for February got TBC? As you go into March, they're confirmed. There's still a question mark over there.
No, at the time that we published this agenda, we hadn't yet confirmed that that date would be the right date. We knew we'd be holding an extra meeting, but yeah, it's just, I think we've now confirmed the 9th.
Anyway, yeah, just finishing off on the community asset transfers, I do think it's really important that we do have sight of those and that we should have had sight of those, which is why I've asked for us to look at those retrospectively as well as the ones going forward. Now, and then in the longer term, we've got a long-standing request from committee members, Oxford Ridge Site Review, sorry, jumping back up to the Climate Strategy and Action Plan. That may be an item that we choose to circulate rather than discuss directly. The Land Availability Assessment, that is to do with the local plan development. And then the rest are TBC, housing responsiveness, fairground development. We received an update in last December's meeting to say that the scope of that project has been changed and they're looking at delivering a scheme with more housing on it. And so that will be the middle of this 2026 now. And the last one, governance of community infrastructure levy. Well, we shall wait for that one around May, June time. Is there anything else that anyone else would like to add on to the list that's not on that list or on the items for scheduling? Aren't we going to be busy? Councillor Peter Martin.
The Q3 report will need to come to the 9th of March meeting, I would have thought. At some stage, we also ought to have another look at housing repairs. That was a big item over the last 18 months, and it ought to come back, I would have thought, in March to see the progress that's being made, or hopefully the progress that's being made on that. I would be very grateful. Although the other thing I would just say is, whilst I'm in principle very happy with additional meetings, I wasn't able to make the changed meeting in December, and I'm not going to be able to make the meeting on the 9th of February. I should be about 12 or 1300 miles away. So it's very annoying that I've planned my life around the timetable that we had, and now it's all changed. It makes life a little difficult. There's an excuse. Thank you.
Just a couple of questions. The fairground development has been postponed for the reasons you just said. At one point, we were talking about maybe penciling in for April. Is that likely to happen, or is it going to be pushed down a lot later? Is it? I'm just wondering whether we should be penciling in April and May at the stage.
Yeah, I don't have an update on anything more accurate than something like no sooner than April. And I also think that on the water quality monitoring matter, I'm still waiting on a final confirmation about whether it is coming forward in this month that would be available for February, or if that might be a March matter as well, just to mention.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll just move back to the agenda items. I think that pretty much completes our talking about forward work programme. So let's move on to number 6, the general fund budget and MTFP, pages 5 to pages 94. We have just had a briefing before this meeting. I don't know if you'd like to, who's going to be introducing on this item? Thanks, Candice.
Yes, so we just had a briefing, so I won't go into massive detail, just to say that we're presenting the general fund budget for 26-27, as well as the medium-term financial plan for the next 4 years. This report outlines a budget balance for the next 2 years and also contains appendixes 1 to 7, which will give you further detail in terms of how the budget has moved, but also supporting documents like the fees and charges, the capital programme, as well as the reserve levels. I won't go into any further detail, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think probably we're just going to open it up for questions and kick off from there. And then I've got a little list, and if we've missed anything off, we'll go through it. Thank you, Councillor Gale.
I'd like to apologise. In my calendar, it said that the meeting at 5:45 was cancelled.
Then reinstate.
It wasn't, it didn't in my calendar. Sorry.
Councillor Rubini.
In my calendar, where they put in the details of the meeting, they're now putting in beside it a cancellation on several of my meetings. Now, I don't know whether they're cancelled or not, because both are there. So there's something slightly wrong with the IT messaging.
So just to be clear, I think an email came around that explained that we had to cancel it and rebook it in a different venue, I think, because of a clash with Guildford. So as a result, the original meeting invite you had was cancelled, and we sent you a new invite. So the reason you're seeing 2 is because the one for a Guildford location was cancelled, and there's a new one for this location here. It went out to all councillors.
Yeah, I think the point is that no one says it's cancelled. Doesn't say where.
On that basis, you're kind of slightly doing it a little bit blind. I'm sure you've rifled through pages 5 to 95 with great interest, but I'm glad we've got Councillor Peter Martin, who I'm sure is just about to kick off some questions for us all.
Oh, right. Thank you. First of all, the comment that I made in the briefing was that there is a level of dissatisfaction with the settlement from government. By the way, before I say anything, could I just say thank you to all of the staff for all of their hard work in producing all this. I know how difficult and time-consuming it is. Being an old CFO, I have a lot of fellow feeling for those who put this thing together. So thank you for all the good work that you've done. But I'm very upset with the level of funding that we're getting from the government. I'm amazed that Guildford is going to get a 7.5% settlement and we get a 0.5%, and everybody else is somewhere in between. Although Woking is at 0, isn't it? Kind of surprising. But then that's called the fair funding formula. But it's good to see that we've got a multi-year settlement. But there are some detailed questions which I'll come to later. But just looking overall, we're being asked to go with a 2.99% increase in council tax. And that's worth £383,000 or something of that sort. Each 1% of the council tax is worth about £128,000. I'd just note that in the Q2 finance report that we looked at in this committee in December, I wasn't here, but which is also coming to full council tomorrow, we're looking at a very considerable surplus this year in the general fund of £452,000. A great deal of that is from staffing shortages, which are generating savings. Those savings have been built into the forecasts for the end of this current year. But as I understand it from Candice's reply, they haven't been built into the next financial year. And that goes back up to the normal levels of staffing that you would expect. So if we're having difficulty recruiting this year, as we have all the year through, I don't see that that's going to change. And I would have thought we would have been looking to reduce the or put in some of the savings of the headcount, which will necessarily happen, as far as I can see, into next year's settlement or next year's budget. I think a portion of that certainly could be built in. I note also that we've got a continuation of SIL and the interest from SIL becoming is a credit and coming into the general fund. At current levels, again from finance, that's in December that was generating £124,000 a month, and even if that is cut, maybe with interest rates coming down to £100,000 next year or even less, we'll still be getting considerably more than £1 million a year from the interest from the SIL balances, which is very substantial. And I note also that car park income is coming in at above expectation. So the question I would ask is, do we really need to go with a 2.99% increase, or should we be feeding some of this money back to our council taxpayers and go with a 0% increase next year rather than the 2.99% increase?
One for you, Candice.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so in terms of cutting down staffing budgets, trying to reflect what's been going on this year, it's a difficult thing in terms of vacancy savings. That would assume that we've got lots of whole posts vacant for a year, but what you're often seeing is maybe it's taking 6 months to recruit or a few months to recruit, and so you'd have to make a choice in terms of what posts we don't think we need anymore. And I think probably if you ask senior officers, they're going to say we need them. And absolutely, we've got an issue with recruitment that is being addressed corporately and needs to be addressed corporately. In terms of the surplus that we're making on car parks this year, that wouldn't obviously go into base. So whilst that's a great thing in terms of putting some more money into our reserves at year end, and it is quite a small surplus, that doesn't help us balance a budget. Budget is obviously different to the surpluses that we managed to achieve in year. So it would mean picking out a few posts to get rid of, and I think those are really much needed resources, especially as we approach LGR with the level of workload that's going to increase, and we're already feeling that increase, I think, as staff. So from an officer point of view, I think we wouldn't advise necessarily reducing those staffing posts in order to cut out council tax. And also, once you don't increase council tax by 2.99%, you lose it out of your base. So you do have to think about the cumulative impact over the next 4 years. Wouldn't just be a shortfall this year, but you're going to lose that out of your base for the rest of time. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Please do.
Thank you. Yes, I do understand the point that you're making, but of course, when you're looking at the forecast for this year, you quite confidently build in those savings, which you obviously see are there. What I've seen is the forecast for Q2. For Q3, you've said that it's likely to be the same, and Q4, I'm sure it will be the same. So I can't see that changing as we go forward into next year, especially when we're into a position where this council is going to go out of business in just over a year's time. And I can't see that recruitment the recruitment will get any easier. If anything, I would have thought it would become more difficult. And so now is the time I'd have thought to reflect that and build it into the plans. I think we should seriously, as a committee, look at that and consider asking the executive to do just that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly looking at the trends, we're seeing underspend on employment. We've consistently seen that for a while, and that's underspend over and on top of what has been required to pay for agency staff. So to suggest that that picture is going to change significantly in the last year of the council and will magically employ all of these people, I don't think is realistic. I don't know if anybody else, any other councillors would like to comment. Councillor Hess and then Councillor Gale.
I can't really quite understand why we talk about 4-year projections when this council won't be here. It doesn't seem logical, unless somebody's got a blind spot and they haven't noticed the change coming up. And if we've got a surplus, apart from the agency staff, why don't we use that to incentivise existing staff
to stay to the end. Pay back to loyal staff who've stayed with the ship as it slowly disappears under the local government reform waves, and give back to loyal staff a bonus. What's wrong with that idea? If we've got a surplus, let's spend it. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't want to carry unnecessary cash into the unitary because that'll just disappear. We may as well give it to our staff who stayed with this council and incentivise them to remain right to the very end. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Hess. I mean, that's noted. I think we're veering away from the budget and more into employment law, and I'm not sure we've got anyone who could answer that. But I would also, I mean, I think that whole point about if we are confident we're carrying surplus cash, that should be revisited back to the taxpayer or to our staff. You know, that's the general theme here, isn't it? And why are we still charging yet more and more each year? So, Councillor Gale.
Yeah, on the recruitment front, I think it's going to be very difficult to recruit staff from now until the end of the Waverley dies. I can't see us being able to recruit more staff. I know that's going to be really difficult for our staff who we have because more and more is being put upon them. So I, like Peter Martin, I don't understand why we're keeping that the same in the budget, because obviously it's not going to be used under my thoughts anyway.
And Councillor Hess has given his thoughts as to what should happen with that money, and Councillor Martin has. Does anyone else have any other thoughts? Councillor Steiger.
Well, I was just going to make the point that if we're going to lose more staff, then we probably need to get more agency staff. So won't that cost keep the same or even go up?
So Candice told us earlier, and you can correct me if I say this wrong, but the numbers, the surpluses assume over and above what's expected to cover agency staff. Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's correct in terms of the performance to date. Obviously, if we assume going into next year that it might get harder to recruit, we're going to have to recruit more and more agency, which is a lot more expensive. So you would need to consider that, I guess, in any reduction you might want to do in staffing budgets, that there might need to be more of an allowance in agency going forward as we go into an uncertain year.
Okay, so on the basis that, what is the current surplus we're talking about, which is coming from underemployment?
There's a net, so there's a net surplus of about 400,000 and 750,000 of staff savings go into that, around that number.
And so even if conservatively half of that was assumed, then that would be a recommendation to council, to the executive, to consider that that surplus should be revisited in terms of either revisiting to reinvesting in existing staff or returning to the taxpayer via lower council tax increases. Comment from the leader?
May I request that ONS specify which staffing roles they feel should be cut as an advisory note to the executive in their recommendation?
I think the best way to deal with it would be to look at averages and then look at an actual sort of overall percentage, which is what you would do in a financial sort of analysis of anything, really. So perhaps we could come forward with a recommendation on that basis. Councillor Martin.
I think in answer to that question from the leader, it's a very reasonable question, and I understand that. But when we're doing estimates for the end of the year, forecasts for the end of the year, we don't do that, and we put a figure overall of the savings. And I think these are unusual times that we're in right now, and therefore we have to have an unusual solution. I wouldn't normally be recommending that we don't. I would normally be recommending, just as you're suggesting, that we should identify the posts and we would take those out. But I think there's a strong case for leaving those and then saying, but there is an impossibility to recruit to that level, and therefore we're putting an adjustment into the figures. In the same way that you're doing that with the current year estimate. And I think that that would be a realistic assumption, given the circumstances that we're in right now, which you normally wouldn't apply. But that's my feeling.
Councillor Merriweather.
Thank you for letting me speak. I just want to make sure I understand this. 2.99% is about £6 on the average Waverley Council Bandy taxpayer. The other side of that is that we are, what I understand is that the suggestion is that we bank some savings, which we are desperately trying not to make, because for all of the financial benefits that we have of not being able to fill these positions, there is a service cost, and the service cost will increase going into the future. So I just want to make sure that I understand that in, if you like, isolating and wanting to bank this one particular saving, with the consequences that we are contracting the financial envelope that we have available to pay for actual staff or for agency staff in a very, very difficult time. I just want to make sure I understand that and understand why this is being singled out when we have other stresses. We have inflation stress. Inflation is persistently above. I mean, if you say, well, we always seem to be saving money on savings, well, you could just as easily say we always seem to be spending more because of inflation. So I'm curious as to why this saving is being singled out to bank, in my view, imprudently, a saving which will force or at least increase the risk of shortfalls in service. I just need to understand that in your own words. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. The reality is that we, at the end of this year, on current estimates, will be taking forward a 452,000 surplus from the year, which is considerably in excess of the 3% or 2.99% that the council tax will generate next year. That will go into reserves. We didn't expect that when we put this plan together for this current year. We didn't expect to finish the year with 452,000 as a saving. I suspect that saving will be greater. If that's a judgment call, we'll have to wait and see. So I think the dangers by the portfolio holder probably overestimated. I just think that if we've got that level of surplus combined with things like SIL interest, which is generating right now £124,000 a year into the general fund, and a substantial chunk of that will continue. Sorry, 124,000 a month. I'm sorry. I think with that sort of level of saving, we could. I think we should be banking an element of that, and in effect giving it back to the council taxpayer. If it's not very much extra to charge a council taxpayer, well, it's apparently not very much for us to bear. I think that we should seriously look at, in this last real year of this council, at saving money for our council taxpayer. And I would recommend to this committee that we make that recommendation for serious consideration by the executive.
I'm seeing nods around the table. Councillor Barcolomex, it sounds like you're in agreement with that. Do any of the councillors have any other comment? Oh, Candice, thank you.
So just maybe a little bit of help in terms of how you would set this out in a budget proposal. Obviously, what I think you're suggesting is perhaps an increased target savings, because you don't want to identify a particular post, which would mean increasing a savings target effectively within the council budget next year. Obviously, the reason we've proposed a 4-year budget, which might seem a bit bizarre because we're ending in a year, is that's really important information to the future unitary. We want all Ds and Bs to have a 4-year picture so we can build the new West Surrey budget. So what we would then need to assume in the following year's MTFP, I'm assuming, is that target comes back out. And so that pressure moves into 27, 28. So I just want to make clear that if we're talking about a 1-year savings target and then reversing that savings target back out, just so we understanding how it would impact the MTFP, because that's an important component as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So can we think about some wording of a recommendation and then vote on that particular item now? And then we'll move on to some more aspects of the budget, I think.
I would suggest that in the light of the expected surplus in this financial year, mainly generated by savings in headcount that the executive should look at reducing council tax next year to return return some of that surplus effectively to the council taxpayer. And we would note that there are other surplus items which are being generated. I would particularly highlight the interest from SIL balances, which at the moment are generating £124,000 a year, which are, sorry, I keep saying a year, I mean a month, which we should also take account of. I think something along those lines would be what I would suggest.
Shall we, Alex, are you able to read that vaguely back to us, and then we'll, you're talking about increase the savings target for year to end 2027.
And in the light of that, we would ask for to improve on the target savings in this 2026-27 year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just give us a minute.
Okay, I'm going to need the figure, but otherwise, I think, and this is a bit wordy for a recommendation, but I think if we're trying to include everything that was said, it would be the committee would agree that in light of the expected surplus in this financial year, mainly generated by savings in headcount, that the executive should look at increasing the savings target for the year 26-27 only, and reducing council tax to return some of that surplus effectively to the council taxpayer. Do you want the part about SIL balances on the end? Okay. Noting that there are other surplus items such as interest from SIL balances, which are generating
£124,000 each month.
Okay. Is that, I mean,
as at December
as
2025.
at December 2025.
I'm sorry, I need to correct that factually.
Which are estimated to be generating 120 by the council to be generating £125,000.
Well, hypothetically, the SIL money is not put into a dedicated bank account that generates interest. It's put into the treasury pot along with all of our other finances. So it is, I think it's inaccurate to attribute the interest specifically to the balances that we may or may not have on SIL. I'm sorry, it is inaccurate.
Chairman,
Councillor Merriweather, yeah, we have been provided these figures by the finance team, and of course, any money.
I think the
sorry,
finance
I'm
team
speaking.
qualified.
When I'm speaking as chairman, and those numbers are numbers which. When you are looking at money in a pot, of course, it makes sense to apply the average rate of return on that or rate of interest on that. That is what is being provided to us. And so the expected return, we've been told, has increased to £124,000 each month from SIL balances held, which as at December 2025 was £33 million in our bank account. So that is correct. Councillor Hess.
But surely that figure of £124,000 each month generated by CIL interest is going to diminish considerably because people are lining up around the block to put in applications for projects for CIL money, surely. I mean, at last count, there was about 11,200,000 sitting there, I think, unallocated. So let's get the word out to all and sundry. If you've got a project, if you need some speed cameras on Castle Hill for the Surrey Police, get your application in, and then that figure will go down and that rate of interest will go down.
Thank you, Councillor Hess. I mean, the point is that of the SIL funds currently being held in our account, 9 million of that is unallocated as at December. But the other 20 odd is money that's been allocated but not spent, but is held by us. So,
Money keeps coming in as well. So even if the money gets spent, there is still money coming in from house building, which is going on. So
I'm really conscious, I think we do need to move on though. So should we just try and take a vote on the recommendation in front of us? Thank you.
From the point of view of an effective recommendation
Mm.
that might have a chance of being accepted, is this part of the end strictly necessary to make the budget point you're trying to make, or is that a political point? Because if you're trying to be,
Well, it's
if
quite
you're
a
trying to have an
substantial
impact,
financial point. Why don't we split it into two?
it's entirely up to you.
It's quite
just-
an important
it's just-
financial point.
It's absolutely up to you. I'm just
Yeah.
making a suggestion in terms of making an
'Cause
effective
it's over £1 million
recommendation.
a year, so it is a financial point. We're just having a discussion as to whether to split the recommendation out as to the SIL bit. So, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do that. So, are we happy to, do you want to say the bit out again? on the
Okay,
phone?
so I think where we've got to would be that in light of the expected surplus in this financial year, mainly generated by savings in headcount, that the executive should look at increasing the savings target for the year 26-27 only and reducing council tax accordingly to return some of that surplus effectively to the council taxpayer. And then you might separately say that the committee notes that there are other surplus items such as interest from SIL balances, which are estimated by the council to be generating 124k each month as at December 2025.
I'm happy with that. Shall we vote on part one? I'm happy to recommend that. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's including me. 1, 2, 3.
It was 7.
Yeah, 7. Yeah, I did count me. And part two, based, which is so that carries.
Those against.
Oh, sorry, against. 3 against. Any abstentions? No abstentions. I will get the hang of this one day. And recommendation 2 in relation to the SIL balances, votes for.
We're only voting on an observation. aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
we're voting on an observation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against. 1, 2, 3 against, and any abstentions, and 1 abstention. So that carries also. Thank you. Right, what new and exciting topic shall we move on to now? Councillor Lawton.
Since we're just covering budget still, I had just 2 questions. One for Candice, who might be able to help. This question about the the settlement, the funding settlement question. I noticed that earlier you commented that Guildford had 7.5%, we have 0.5%. Do we know what a national average figure is? Because it seems to be indicative by needs, social needs, basically. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's based on needs and deprivation. So nationally, the average is around 5%. So we're well below that average.
Thank you. And then the second question is just a bit, which is commenting about car parks. And I'm reading 6.26, which says the proposal is a 0.35% average increase across car park tariffs in council-owned car parks. I don't know how much that relates to pounds, but given such, it seems to be a very small percentage. By making it 0, you've got a very strong PR message, haven't you? I don't know what the cost of it would be if you move it from plus 0.3 to 0, but if you have a message saying we're not increasing on average car parks at all, that will be very well received because it's a very contentious point at the moment.
Yep, so in terms of just the financials, so the 0.35 is an average. So on some rates, like the hourly rate, you're going to have more of an increase and you're going to have a reduction in the longer stays. So where you get the weight of your income on a 1 hour parking charge, there is additional money to be received there. And then we're reducing it elsewhere. So it would make a difference. You would lose, I can't remember before, what have I put in what is in the budget? 200 odd thousand basically, if we were to just say a 0% increase. So there would be a gap that would come if we were to move to a 0% increase.
That moves us on beautifully and nimbly onto the subject of car parking, of which I can see some hands up already. I'm going to kick this off. I have some real concerns about the cliff edge that I am seeing on some of the main car parks, where the 6-hour charge and the 8-hour charge has been removed in essentially some of Farnham's main car parks, nearly 40% of them, and also in the main car park in Godalming, Waverley, the Crown Court car park. So what you'll have a situation is where you're paying for something like, if you stay for 3 hours 59 minutes, you're staying for, I don't have the numbers in front of me, it's something like £6, and then it jumps up to, if you stay 4 hours and 1 minute, £25. Now, that just seems insane to me and outrageous. I don't know if anybody else has anything to comment on. Councillor Hess.
Yes, I saw a post put on social media by the MP Greg Stafford about that. That does seem extraordinary. Maybe we're trying to drive people out of town. I mean, maybe somebody else could comment. Is that what we're trying to do? I mean, if we're running a surplus on the car parking, perhaps we should reduce car parking charges and make it a lot less.
Thank you, Councillor Hess.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we've got a surplus, in my estimation, we've got two things we could do. We could either clean up the car parks, resurface them, put in good lighting, and get them cleaned and litter picked and looked after, instead of looking scruffy, run down, horrible. Or we could reduce the car parking charges, take off that penalising £25 charge, or we could do a bit of both. But I would like to see them smartened up. I mean, quite frankly, people come into the car parks, pay a lot of money, and they're scruffy, full of litter, leaves, not cleared up. It's rubbish. We should be ashamed of ourselves.
Literally rubbish. So I think Councillor Martin had his hand up. Oh, sorry, Councillor Murray did next, and then it's Councillor Martin, then Councillor Rubini, and then I'm going to go to the exec member for comment. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on this. I appreciate it. I've looked at this all weekend after I saw that it was announced that car parking charges were going to go up in Farnham. So I went through, Councillor, the portfolio holder's spreadsheet, and I know the portfolio holder well, and I'm sure he's spreadsheeted the nth degree out of it. My wife, we sat down together and did it together because she's better at maths than me. And actually, looking at it on the whole, when I look at it and it's only 0.135% increase overall, and that's overall across Waverley. Actually, Farnham's one is less than that. It's minus 1.5% for Farnham. The whole overall for the whole of Waverley is 0.35. Now, what I know he's done, and he may well tell me, George, you're wrong, but what he's looked at is the behaviour of people who are using those car parks. And the ones I know, I don't know Godalming, but I certainly know Farnham well enough. And what he's done is made them into commuters, workers, supermarket shoppers, and all those kind of places, and those individual car parks and how they are used. So where the step off is for the 4 hours, he's trying to make the central car park and the Waitrose car park not people who are going to stay there for 8 hours, but only stay there for a minimum amount of time, because you want the churn and also make those 1, 2, 3 hour things. So I know where he's come from with that. What he's done is incentivized to try to make people who are parking for the day, and those people are local workers, to be fair, not commuters as much, because most commuters go to the station car park. Most people who are staying longer or 6 or 8 hours in the car parks are workers. And I work at Elphix, as you know, and my colleagues who work there they either park in the Upper Hart car park all day, and it costs them 10 quid, or they park in the Riverside car park, or they use something else. They don't park in the Central car park all day because they can't afford 25 quid. And also, you don't want them staying in that car park all day. You want that churn so that shoppers can go in there. So saying all that, looking at it on balance, I would agree with what my colleague, Councillor Lawton said. Why not just get rid of the 0.35% and say, we've not put it up, it's zero. And you could probably find that 200,000, which I think it was somewhere. But the one thing I would say, if the portfolio holder could have a look at the Brightwells car park, he's designated that as a shopper's car park. Now, it was in the original plan, and it will be when there's shops in there. But there are no shops in there. And the people who used it successfully was when it was free. They were all workers. And we do need more workers' car parking. And it's safe, and it's well lit, and it's nearer to town. So workers would use that car park more if it was the same price as a workers' car park, like the Hart car park. So I think if I could urge the portfolio holder to look at that the Brightwells car park and see if they could make it into a workers' car park, not a shopper's car park, just temporarily for the next 2 years. Once you get some more shops in there, you could redesignate it. And I think that might well help. And I think it might well be cost neutral. But anyway, thank you very much, Chair, for letting me speak.
No, thanks. Thank you, Councillor Murray, for raising those points. I suppose my initial feedback would be it's lovely if councillors can designate certain car parks for certain things, but that's simply not how people who arrive in town centres operate. And it's a very big cliff edge for anyone who might want to go and have lunch and meet a friend, and they park for 4 hours and 1 minute, so 25 quid. Goodness me, they're not going to be coming back anytime soon. Now, Councillor Martin, you had your hand up, and sorry, Councillor Rabini as well. Shall I do Councillor Rabini and then Councillor Martin? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I really just wanted to suggest that we don't listen or look at these social media comments. I know the social media that you were talking about, but he actually put in there false claims about Sunday parking and 1 hour parking. Can we get away from that and just use facts, please?
Okay. Councillor Martin?
Thank you. I've taken a careful look at the car parking changes. There are 3 or 4 things that I would observe. Firstly, that there were some quite considerable increases in 1 hour parking, going up, I think, up to 10%, some of them staying the same. 2 hours, in some cases, they've come down very slightly. But then you get to 4 hours, and some of those charges have come down slightly. But the concern that I share with you, Madam Chairman, is this business of taking away 6 hours and 8 hour parking limits and putting them all the way through to an all-day tariff. And that does seem unreasonable. And it may be a minority of those who are using our car parks would go over a 4 hour stay. But I think they can be quite significant. And people who do come in, as you say, to have lunch maybe, and to then do some shopping, and going a few minutes over 4 hours are faced with an enormous bill or a fine because they've gone over the 4 hours. And that seems to me to be unreasonable. I just think that that's wrong. I would propose that we reintroduce or recommend reintroducing at least the 6 hour slot. So that you don't get that cliff edge. And I think that might be reasonable. People are perhaps not going to stay for 6 hours, but they may well want to stay for 4.5 hours. And going from this, as we've got it now, if I look at Crown Court car park, for instance, it would be 4 hours here, you'd be at £5.60. And then suddenly you go to an all-day tariff, which is proposed at £25. I mean, that at that point from 4 hours, when you go 1 minute over, you're faced with this enormous increase. That just doesn't seem to be right to me. And I would strongly urge this committee to ask the portfolio holder to look at that again, because that seems wrong. The last point that I would like to make is on the evening parking. 2 years ago, this was proposed as a trial, and that trial a year ago was extended. It was still a trial, but I've seen no information about the result of that trial. And I just wondered whether we could have some information on the result of that trial, and does that really lead us to continue with the experiment of having evening parking? Thank you.
Thanks. So I don't know who wants to answer this, whether it's Candice or an executive member. So we've got questions here about whether the executive will investigate the budgetary impact of reintroducing 6-hour parking charges and expressing our concerns. We are also concerned about evening charges. Certainly, I have requested detail of the research on the evening charges and received nothing as to what the actual data to support that decision is. I also want to know what the current evening charges are. All I've got a sheet of what is proposed. So that's a further question. And also, I just wanted to raise 6.28, which I think is a political statement in a budget report. Evening charges, which allows the council to retain Sunday parking, will remain in a limited number of town centre car parks. Well, that's not true. That's just not connecting the two as a political statement. We have evening charges we've had them on a trial. And there's no rule which says that's what's allowing us to retain free Sunday parking, something that we've always had. So I would personally suggest that line is removed. So Tony, sorry, Councillor Fairclough, is it you that will be responding, or who? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I welcome all the comments made. That's the whole point of this committee, and they're acting in a very good way. First of all, with respect to Councillor Martin's, or primarily Councillor Martin's suggestion that we relook at the option of introducing 6-hour charges, I will take that away and I will be discussing that with officers. I hear your concerns. Councillor Murray's observation and those of his wife were quite correct. The whole point of what we are trying to do is extend stays in our car parks. That's what the businesses need. The businesses get no advantage from people just popping in for less than an hour. The average stay in Farnham is far less than an hour. We know that. And what we want to do is we want to encourage people to stay longer, to do the very things that Councillor Martin described, go for lunch and then go on to other shops. So that is our overall strategy, and that is why we've focused on keeping the costs of 2, 3 and 4 hour parking down. And however, I do recognise Councillor Martin's concerns and I will raise those with officers. With respect to Councillor Murray's comments about Brightwells, we have raised this. Our concern is in the rather complex, in fact, not rather, extremely complex contractual relationship with Surrey County Council as the operator of the commercial units. I am yet, I'm afraid, to receive, and it's not a reflection of our officers, it's a reflection of the complexity of the agreements. I'm yet to receive a comprehensive and answer to the question, are we allowed to do that, or do we in fact have to run that car park on the same basis as the other town centre car parks, such as Central Car Park? With respect to the evening charges, I draw your attention to 6.29. where we will be in the evenings planning to introduce a pay to stay for offer, effectively meaning that that visitors will be able to stay during the evenings, all evenings, for an overall cost of £2.40 an hour. Again, in recognition of comments that we've received during the year regarding our current evening charges. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm just been with the Vice Chair just drafting the outlines of some recommendations I think that we can try and put forward and agree, if that's okay. We would like to start with that the executive considers, or is the view of this overview, the executive considers keeping no parking charges increases, so it makes it 0%. Averaging, looks into the financial impact of 0 increases, I think.
The executive looks into the financial impact
Of not,
Well,
you go.
if we can get a sentence which can be agreed to say the proposal is a 0% average increase across car park tariffs in council-owned car parks, that's a very strong PR message, I think, to all Waverley residents.
The next bit is it sounds to me like the committee may be asking the executive to revisit the loss of the 6-hour parking tariff. Do you, Peter, reinvestigate? Look into maintaining a 6-hour charge. Following concerns, it was about a cliff edge, isn't it, of parking tariffs.
Proposals for how we're funding these recommendations.
So that they'll need to look into the financial implications for all of that. But yeah.
So I appreciate that we're making proposals for things that would cost money. Is there a suggestion from the committee as to how they would be funded as part of the recommendation?
Well, are we not looking at a surplus of hundreds of thousands of pounds? So
if the proposal from the committee is that they be funded from the surplus, you could put that in your recommendation. I mean, you can make a recommendation without saying how it would be funded, but if you're looking to make a sort of an impactful recommendation, ideally you'd have a sort of a complete proposal where you'd say, could we do this that costs money by not doing that costs money, that kind of thing.
It's difficult for the committee to make a decision not knowing what the actual cost of each of those is. So we're asking for the executive to investigate the cost implications and consider. Is that correct? Councillor Martin?
We could, again, ask for an increase in the target savings. We could look at reserves. There are lots of places that 283,000, whatever, £200,000 could be found within the budget envelope of 18 million. But yes, something like that I would have thought would be the right thing to do.
So what I've got here is a recommendation that the executive looks into the financial impact of a 0% average increase in council-owned car parks.
Yeah.
And that the executive is asked to reinvestigate maintaining a 6-hour car park charge.
Why don't you just keep it the financial impact of A?
Okay.
And then B?
Great. Okay. So financial impact of A 0% increase in council-owned car parks, and
B? In particular.
Okay.
Maintaining a 6-hour charge. C, revisiting the status of Brightwells car park and charging its charging tariff.
And lastly, provide details of the trial for evening charges.
Oh yeah, so that wouldn't be, so that's all the financially bits, and then separate, next recommendation was the ONS committee would like more information and data about how the evening charges have actually been arrived at. How did the evening trial go? The consequences. Thank you, Councillor Gale. And then finally.
So sorry, I don't think I got the wording of that one. So I've got, the executive looks into the financial impact of A, a 0% average increase in council-owned car parks. B, maintaining a 6-hour charge. I suppose that should say a 6-hour car park charge.
Yeah.
And C, revising the status of Brightwell's car park and its charging tariff.
Yeah.
And then separately,
I think that should be investigated.
okay, was it investigated?
Investigate, well, revise, you've Alex.
Well, it wouldn't be for us to revise the status if the status is actually there. So
Oh, I mean, you've allocated it as a shopping car park or whatever you've called it, yeah. Whereas maybe you should allocate it as a different.
after that would be determining our ability to do so will be determined by the contractual agreement. So that's why I said I would investigate rather than.
Investigate is fine. Thanks, thank you, councillor Fairclough, thank you. And finally, personally, I think 6.28 is a political statement and should be removed from a non-political budget. I don't know if you all agree with that or not. Should we take a vote on each of those individual? Oh, councillor Gale. And, oh yeah, so we.
Okay, so I've got the AB.
Provides data,
Provide data.
transparent data on the evening charges trial to date. Thank you. Next, sorry.
There's no problem.
Sorry, just bear with us. I think we're getting through the main bits of the budget here, so then we.
Okay, so I've got that the executive looks into the financial impact of A, a 0% average increase in council-owned car parks, B, maintaining a 6-hour car park charge, C, investigating the status of Brightwell's car park and its charging tariff. Should that be separate rather than investigate the cost of? I think it's not C, is it?
No, it's a separate one.
Okay, that the executive provides transparent data to whom about the evening charges trial to date?
To all councillors.
To all councillors. That paragraph 6.8 be removed from the report?
6.28.
Oh, sorry, pardon me, 6.28 be removed from the report. Do you want to say anything else in the recommendation about that?
But is it as a subjective statement?
As a subjective statement. Okay, I think that's all I've got. Is there anything
Okay,
else?
are we all happy to agree those en masse? I'm happy with those.
As if they have got a comment on removing 6.28.
Anyone got any comment on removing 6.28?
So 6.28 in terms of the free car parking versus evening car parking is based on the prior year MTFP targets. So there was a balance to be made, and part of the working group looked at the options of bringing in evening car parking charging or Sunday, and there was a balance to be struck, and that's where that anecdotal narrative has come from. No further than that, but that's the reason it's been included.
Well, it's anecdotal, as you say. For those of us on the outside, it means little.
As one group or separately.
Yeah. Can we just group all of those together? Are you all happy to vote and agree those? Everyone put your hands up. Who is for? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 for. Against? 1 against. Abstentions? 2. Thank you.
That is carried.
And so that is carried. I always forget that bit. Thank you. Councillor Hess.
I think the council have got an overall budget surplus of, was it 452,000, something like that?
452.
What was a car parking surplus included in that figure?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Candice, that was just a salary surplus.
I
I'll ask
see.
Candice to respond.
Yeah, no, that's the net surplus is 452. That includes car parking surplus, which was I can't remember, 10k or something like that. Yeah.
Do we know what the car parking surplus was? Or is?
About 10k, yeah.
10,000.
Around 10,000. I think
Oh,
it's
it's
gone
not
up to
much,
about
is it?
17,000 this quarter.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Have we got any more queries to raise
Done budgets today.
on the budget? I just wanted to just check my notes. I made. La, 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 la. Okay, it was just a general comment in that, I'm going to say, and then I'll ask you. I just wanted to just make a general note that we note that all the collaboration cost savings, we all spent a great deal looking at these 2-year savings, and most of those seem to have been stripped out from the budget this year. And I understand that is because the focus is now LGR. But obviously, given that that was the whole way that the budget was structured last year, it is a significant change. Councillor Martin.
Yes, I would also say that, of course, the transitional costs which have been given to us, as I understand it, effectively by the County Council, which we're looking at, are pretty huge. But at the same time, we're losing the collaboration savings, which amounted to 450 odd £1,000, which have come out. So, as you say, we spent a lot of time looking at those, but they're not going to happen now, which is a sadness. But I think I understand the reasons for that, and it will be difficult to argue otherwise. Could I just ask a question on Appendix 4.1, please? This is the annex or appendix on charges, additional charges. The default percentage increase is about 4%, which is quite high, bearing in mind what we expect the CPI to come down to next year, but I guess that's probably reasonable. But there are two areas where they were going up considerably more. On page 48 of our report, building control, commercial services, there's an average increase of over 10%, and I just wondered why we have an increase of that scale rather than the default of 4%. And I also would just like to have some information on page 64, 65, where we have some considerable figures, I think, for legal, which are, is it page 64? The legal department are introducing some scales of charges, which, as I understand it, haven't applied before. And I just wondered what they were. Thank you.
Candice, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, so building controls, there has been a little bit of text added into 4.1 to try and explain this reason in terms of 10% increase. So the increase reflects the additional time, technical input and resources required to manage applications arising from significant recent change to building regulations. So essentially the change in building regulations has meant that staff time and resource that needs to go into managing these applications has gone up an awful lot, and this 10% reflects that. And the second question, remind me, what was that on?
Was page 63, which is legal and democratic services, increasing
Oh,
the charges quite considerably. On page 64, there are some substantial increases, well, charges which weren't made before, which are entirely new. So what's the reason for that?
Yeah. So those legal charges that have been introduced in terms of the fees and charges are probably standard fees and charges we should have had for years. So what would have been happening is when those have come up, we've had to do bespoke agreements. So this is just standardising that approach, ensuring that those legal fees are also listed correctly. And again, those fees have all been benchmarked, particularly against with our counterparts in Guildford, and work alongside those. So the introduction of those fees is essentially standardising what should have been there anyway.
Chairman, so standardising, are you saying we didn't charge before and we should have done, or we did on an ad hoc basis, or what?
Exactly, on an ad hoc basis, we would charge for those, and that was on bespoke agreements. But this is just formalising that approach and ensuring that it's within our fees and charges document.
Are you satisfied, Councillor? Yeah. Councillor Murray, and then we are moving on from the budget.
Thank you, Chairman, and it's a very quick question. I'm sure Candice will know what it is. So in strategy and corporate, it's an increase of 1.2 million. Is that part of the LGR money which we have to contribute?
Let me tell you, the best place to look for the answer to that, there is Appendix 3, because it splits out the variances per service. But let me have a look. That was strategy and corporate. So one of those big chunks of money is coming out as that collaboration target, the 452,000. So that comes out of strategy and corporate, which is no fault of Luke. It just happens to be put into that service area. And then actually quite a big one is we've had again a look at the internal recharges. And so there's an increase. So it's not really a true increase for service. It would be net off against the general fund elsewhere. So the predominant one is the collaboration target.
Yeah, so that's the 890 internal charges, which is
Exactly.
part of that strategy and corporate thing.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I hope it's okay if I, at the top of our recommendations, insert two, I hope, non-controversial recommendations we did discuss as follows.
So from what I understand, you're asking if we start with a motion to record the committee's thanks to the finance team, and then secondly, to record the committee's dissatisfaction with the settlement for Waverley following the fair funding review. Is that right?
That's correct. Is everyone happy to agree those two recommendations? Hands up and everyone's happy. Thank you. Anyone against? No, no abstentions. Hooray. Right. Agenda item 7, the HRA, which possibly, who knows, will be less controversial. Is anyone introducing that? Candice, thank you.
That's me again, yes. So the HRA budget report for 26-27, that also includes a 30-year business plan. And I guess the highlights from that report, the proposed increase for rent is 4.8%. We've got a £14 million capital programme proposed, which is an increase from prior years. And I think what really to point out with this one is we've worked really closely for the first year with Savills, who are an expert in the field of business plans and have reviewed our business plan, and we've updated our business plan based on the information that they've provided and market standards, benchmarking, and I think a really helpful report has been introduced, and you'll see that in Appendix 8, and it's a really worthwhile read. It really talks about the health of our business plan benchmarking. So yeah, that's it really, and I'll hand back over for questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, everyone. I mean, I think I have had a good read of the report and the Savills report too, which I agree was interesting and useful. I think the one thing that I really did take note of, which I'll kick off the discussions and then ask for your comments, is the Savills report on page 132 suggests the minimum 2 million working balance may be low and should be reviewed. I just wanted to have that noted, really, and that is being dealt with. And then a second, just to kick off my questions, the condition surveys. The Savills report suggests that the 69k per house stock investment profile over the 30 years is robust, but it also refers to this assumption being dependent on Waverley's programme of condition surveys. That's page 141.6. So my question to kick it all off is, what condition are Waverley's homes in at present? The Savills report states this may need to be updated once provided. So, I mean, obviously I'm concerned as to what information Savills have had in arriving at their decisions. And so what information were Savills provided with? Annalise?
Thanks. So just to let you know that you're aware of the Decent Homes Standard that all social housing landlords have to adhere to. So a piece of work was done last year, and currently we're reporting that 5.3% of the council's homes are not meeting the Decent Home Standard. That could be because of thermal comfort or reasonably modern facilities like kitchens and bathrooms. So we have a programme for replacing those. And the information that we have available as at April 2025, 85% of our homes had had a stock condition survey in the last 5 years. So we do have good data on our homes. And we've started with our new stock condition surveyor, and they're going to be doing 1,700 homes a year over a 3-year rolling programme. So our real focus is on knowing our homes, knowing the conditions of our homes, to then enable us to plan our capital works effectively and make sure we're investing in the right properties to keep our tenants safe and warm.
Okay, thanks. So I presume Savills used that data in the report. That's essentially what I was looking for comfort for. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, no, that's useful to have the explanation. No, thank you. Does anyone else have any other queries on the HRA? Councillor Martin.
Thank you. The key decision is on the increase in rent to by 4.8%. I think I'm okay with that. It's in line with policy, and it was always a little strange when we had by government imposition a reduction a few years ago, and I think a catch-up is reasonable. So I think I'm okay with that. My question is on a different subject, and that's the level of the debt, this dreadful debt that we have been encumbered with, which is 154 million right now. We took a decision in December 2022 as a council not to pay that back. And I just wonder whether the time has come to look at that again. Maybe not, because we're going to be subsumed into West Surrey. So, but I just wonder whether we ought to be paying any of that back. I really don't understand. I can't recall the rationale as to why we decided not to do anything. I think we wanted to use the money to build more homes, but we don't seem to be doing that very well. It just seems wrong to me not to be repaying that some of that debt at least. Thank you.
Could I offer anyone for comment who would want to comment on that? And that and the what's happening with the 2 million low working balance as well. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. So firstly, the 2 million working balance absolutely been suggested by Savills that we have a look at that. So we've already started our review of that, and we're particularly going to look at it in light of what happens at year end, so that we can look at the overall balances, and we will work with Savills again to move that to what, you know, a more industry standard level. So we're going to look at that. We can bring back more information on that as well. In terms of the debt repayment, so it has been looked at. Savills just looked at it as part of their business plan review, and their suggestion is in line with what we'd suggested, that right now is not the time to be repaying debt, because we need that money to invest in our homes, to keep them at a standard, to keep them safe and warm. And so in terms of affordability, it really is a choice now of repaying debt or investing in our homes and making sure that they are decent homes. So right now is not the right time. As soon as it becomes, so within the business plan, as soon as we start to get some surplus cash, and we do eventually, it then gets suggested at that point you pay back. So essentially anything you don't need to keep your homes invested in, then you start to repay that debt. But it's a choice between repaying debt and investing in our homes, and what this sets out as investing in our home is our priority over that debt repayment.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other comments on the HRA that they want to make? Do we have recommendations that we want to bring forward? It's more notes, really, isn't it? Then I think it sounds to me like the committee notes that they're generally they're comfortable with the 4.8%, or that they can see that that's justified. Councillor Martin?
And can we also thank the team for the production of the HRA budget for next year?
Yeah, let's start with the thanks again, if that's okay, Alex. And then we note the committee thinks that the 4.8% appears to be reasonable. The committee notes the finance team are revisiting the 2 million minimum working balance level.
Sorry, can you say that one?
The committee notes that the 2 million working balance level may be low, and the finance team are reviewing this. And the committee notes, well, are you complaining about the level of debt or lack of debt repayment, or are we just noting it? Do you want to comment on it at all?
I just wanted to float it as an idea. When we're just about to subsume ourselves into West Surrey, it's not the time to be paying the debt back, I guess. But I just wondered what the background in terms of why we should not pay the debt back. And I think it's reasonable that we should spend the money for the moment on improving our homes and bringing them up to standard, especially as we're just about to go out of existence and become part of West Surrey. So I'm not raising that as a
okay, so we'll just be silent on that. Okay, do you want to read it out, and then we'll move on to the next one? Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add something after 4.8 to describe what the figure is. I'm not sure I'm about to get it right. So the committee thanks the team for production of the HRA budget. Committee notes that the 4.8% something figure, what do you want to call that?
4.8%.
Weekly rent, council dwelling fee increased by 4.8%.
Increase on weekly rent for council dwellings.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm looking at, officers? Yes, good.
2.1.
Okay, so I'm saying committee notes that the 4.8% increase on weekly rent for council dwellings appears to be reasonable, and that the £2 million, I assume,
Yeah.
working balance level may be low.
Minimum working balance. No.
Minimum working balance level may be low, and the finance team are reviewing this.
I'm happy with that. Can we all put our hands up we all for that recommendation? All are for, no against, no abstentions. And so that is carried.
General, I said.
I just like watching everyone put their hands up, you know.
That's your prerogative as chair.
Yeah. So, agenda item 8, capital strategy. Page 151. Thank you, Councillor Lawton. Oh. We're still only halfway through, I was going to say. Okay. I'm sure we've all read this forensically. I personally don't have much to say about this item. Does anybody else have any comment to kick off on this item? Councillor Martin?
Just wondered if we could get an introduction to it from the officers before we...
Such a good point. Would someone like to introduce this? Thank you.
Thank you. No, I didn't mind having a break actually, but yeah, I'll do a quick intro. I won't go into too much detail. We went into a bit more detail in the briefing, but just to say you've got 3 key documents in front of you that form part of the capital strategy. And so an overview of what they do. The capital strategy is looking at the decisions in terms of what we invest in, the asset investment strategies, ensuring that those assets deliver best value, and the treasury management strategy ensures investments are funded and managed safely. So these are in formats that you would have seen before. They're the same format that we introduced a few years ago, no major changes. The main changes that will be contained within the documents are in the treasury management strategy, where we have to annually update our prudential indicators. Prudential indicators are something we have to do. It's in line with SIPFA code, but they're really key indicators in terms of the health of an organisation. So I guess if I was going to draw your eye to anywhere, I would draw your eye to those prudential indicators. That talks about our borrowing limits and how we're performing. We have worked really closely with our Guildford colleagues who've also aligned their capital strategies, and so we're now working with one set of documents, which I think is going to be really useful going into LGR. I won't say any more, but I'm really happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Candice. I can't see, as I said, the document that I've read seems very similar to what I've seen before. Councillor Martin.
I really don't think we need to dwell long on this. If you read the documents, they're almost word for word the same as last year's documents. Obviously, the numbers have changed, and some of the numbers have changed quite considerably, but that's the nature of capital because it moves around, and you do what you don't do this year, you move into next year and vice versa. And so you think, oh, these numbers are changing a lot, but we had that discussion a year ago. I would still like to see a greater emphasis on the financial return rather than on the non-financial returns, but I'm not going to start that debate now. And I would propose that we just note the capital strategy. Thank you.
Any other comment? I therefore agree. Shall we note the capital? Yep.
Oh, we agreed.
Oh, we agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. That is carried. Agenda item 9. The delivery plan progress report. Do we have someone who will be presenting this item? Is it Liliana?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Liliana. Thank you. Does anyone else? Sorry.
So you typically might go to the cabinet member first, or in this case, perhaps the leader.
Would any of the executive like to present this first or introduce this?
I think we'll be happy just to listen to comments before it comes to exec, but I think realistically, the updates that we've proposed here are also in line with the fact that we have local government reorganisation coming, and prioritisation under such circumstances is essential.
Okay, thanks. Over to you, Liliana.
Thank you. The 2025-26 Delivery Plan Progress Report provides an update on the Council's progress on delivery plan projects and actions in the first 2 quarters of this financial year. It covers the month from April to September 2025. Some highlights include the installation of an air source heat pump, solar panels and battery storage at Wilmer Hill Pavilion, bringing the site closer to being carbon neutral. The launch of online learning programme Seedle, reducing barriers faced by residents in accessing employment. And the delivery of 27 new affordable homes. Following on from this is the 26-27 Corporate Delivery Plan. This sets out the most significant projects and actions the Council will work towards to deliver the corporate strategy priorities in advance of the formation of the West Surrey Unitary. These actions include beginning the construction of a new passive house leisure centre in Cranley, transferring valued community assets to local groups, completing restoration works to the front facade of Wilmer House, Farnham, maximising opportunities for affordable housing, and maintaining strong and sustainable finances in advance of LGR. To minimise design costs, the reports on this agenda are unbranded. We have a window to merge any comments made by the committee into the final version due to go to the executive. In addition to inviting any comments on the content and presentation of the reports, we'd also be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have, but we may need to follow up with a written response if we don't have the necessary detail to hand this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask if anyone's got any questions or any comments to make on either report. I certainly think possibly I've got more to say about the corporate delivery plan than the first report, which was interesting to read. I suppose I would like to turn you to page 266. Which is talking about the fairground project. So I just suppose I would like a little bit more information about this publicly, because obviously we know originally this was a housing development. It came back to council in I think 2023 to split this out into a mixed use retail on the ground floor and then housing above. That is now being reassessed, and it looks like approval to progress submission of an outline planning permission. Well, that's not going to happen in April 2026 because nothing's even coming to us as far as I'm aware until after that point. So would anyone have any comment to make on what's happening with this one? We seem to be having a bit of an about turn.
Not at all. The fairground development is an allocated site in the local plan for a mixed-use development, always has been and still is. The enabling development of a youth facility on Waydown Road is the one that is coming first because that will unlock the fairground site for the mixed-use development. And it's the Waydown Road youth facility which is the one that's in that particular pipeline.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful. What's the timeline for the rest of the development?
We are going out to procurement for the fairground site. We've already authorised the commencement of the procurement process for the design side of the fairground development. That was before Christmas, and so we'll be looking at that during this year. I don't exactly have the exact timeline to me, but that's already started.
Okay, so do you have any other comment about, it sounds like it's going to return to a housing development, not a mixed use development anymore?
Not as far as I know.
Okay, interesting. Right, Councillor Rubini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, this project has been going on for a number of years. We need a solution. We need to get it done. We want a spade in the ground, so to speak. First thing is to say that with the youth hub, very keen on the youth of Hazlemere having a new building. The one that they're in isn't suitable. It's coming down. It won't last much longer. We need to get on with it. The car itself with commuters, that's not the God, surely. The community must come before most car parking areas. And we support the commuters in Hazlemere in that car park for no charge whatsoever. And that just isn't viable. Now that also contains one of the only brownfield sites that we have in Hazlemere. And we've got to make good use of that with social housing. Otherwise, where do we put social housing? So we want social housing in there. We want the young people to have a brand new, suitable home where they can actually do the youth club, etc., and make best use of it. Whether there is another supermarket there or not will come out of the feasibility study. I don't mind either way. There's been a lot of talk about it, about traffic congestion and other things, but it all seems so very negative, and I don't understand why. There's so much good going to come out of this. We just need to get it going. And 4 to 6 years, to what it's taken so far, is far too long.
Councillor Merriweather, yeah, could you just, what I'm concerned is it says here, review options to bring more housing development onto the site, summer 2026. Could you comment on, respond to Councillor Rubini and that comment? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Listen, the local plan allocation and the Hazlemere neighbourhood plan allocation for this site is extremely specific and extremely conditional on car parking being resolved, the issue of car parking. So all of the work that's gone into this has been very precise in respecting the letter and the spirit of the Hazlemere neighbourhood plan and our local plan. And as long as we can do that viably and sustainably, I think we still want to try. But you know, we've all been affected. Everyone's been affected by the economic volatility of the last few years, inflation and other things besides. It's not an easy site. And on top of car parking, there are traffic issues which are outside of our control to mitigate. They'll have to be with Surrey County Council or whoever replaces it. And there are issues on the car park that, you know, half of it is free long stay. It's all free, but some of it's controlled. Half of it's controlled, time limited, and the other half is free. And I think the received wisdom is that a lot of that car parking is used by people who are not from Hazlemere. They come, they park, and they use it to go and commute up to London from the railway station. So there are a number of very difficult pieces to this jigsaw. And we are trying to find the least disruptive solution to that formula as we can. We've done car parking studies. We've redone car parking studies. We've consulted with Hazlemere Town Council at every opportunity, not only in terms of what's happening at the fairground, but what's happening down at the Waden Road site. But despite all of these things moving around, the moving goalposts, you know, we have pressed ahead with the Waydown Road car park youth hub there, which will unlock fund, which will be funded by what we're going to do up at the fairground car park. But we've gone out to procurement on the fairground side for the design. We're close to getting the planning application in for the hub, and I just hope that all of the other things outside of our control stop moving long enough for us to actually get this thing advanced.
Okay, thank you. I think certainly from my perspective, priority is social housing on that site. Councillor Gale.
Yeah, just generally on the site itself, really, I think I applaud if we can put some social housing on there, because that is greatly needed. But it does bother me because I don't think there's a solution to the parking. I think the shops and any other little businesses that are in on the hill there, on Way Hill, are going to suffer if that parking's gone. I know everybody assumes that that's where all the commuters park, but I've parked there hundreds of times to go to shops and businesses and opticians and all sorts of things in Way Hill. And without that car park, I'd probably go to Guildford instead, or Godalming, which is a shame. But yeah, I think we've really got to do something there, and urgently, with the housing, because that is a necessity for the people living within that area.
Councillor Rabini.
Thank you for letting me come back. The entire car park is not going. The plans are to allow shoppers to still park in that area. So please, you're welcome to come to Hazelmere. Spend all your money, please. We'd love you to do that. What I would say is that one of the things I've said for many years, we support commuters for nothing. Surely that should be the job of the British Rail, whatever they're called now, the railway station. I've asked them if they could extend their car park, and the answer is yes, they make money out of it. They're expensive. So surely we should be looking at getting the car parking where it rightfully belongs, in the railway station.
Okay, thanks. I'm just going to let you come back in a sec, Councillor Merriweather. I don't think we've got anything else to say on this report. Councillor Martin, is this about fairground? No. I just can we finish on the fairground? I would like. Are we having confirmation then that this is retaining as a mixed use retail with housing above scheme that's going through procurement now? And Councillor Merriweather, you were going to come back on something else, and then we really are moving on.
Yeah, so you know, we are currently progressing on the basis that I described. I can't predict the outcome procurement. We've been through exercises before where we've not even had people come along and bid for the work, let alone come up with the answers that we wanted. Particularly coming back on the car parking side, one of the problems is, I think, as you alluded to earlier on, you can put in place, you can say to people, well, we're going to build another level on the, or we're going to get Network Rail to build another level on the car park or whatever. What you can't force people to do is do what you would like them to do. And the risk here is that people who are displaced, commuters who are displaced from the long stay free car parking on the fairground, don't go. There's a reason they park there. It's because it's free, and the risk is that they displace not to a paid car park or to the station car park. They displace to the side streets. They displace elsewhere, and that is the enforcement. There will be an issue because it's on street. Once we're a unitary, maybe that'll be something else. But what we do want to do, what the goal we've set ourselves is to say, theoretically, once we've done the fairground and once we've done the Way Down Road car park, theoretically, the impact on the capacity, the number of spaces available for people, will be roughly neutral. We can't guarantee that, but it'll be roughly neutral. Whether people actually use those spaces the way we'd like to, well, there's nothing new. That will be an enforcement challenge.
Okay, thank you for that. I mean, they could always go park in the high street car park. I mean, as long as it's not for more than 4 hours. No.
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends which one.
So-
They could always go to Farnham.
Well, so, oh yeah, 38% of those car parks too will be 25 quid. Right. Anyway, Councillor Martin, did you have something to finish off this item with?
Thank you. Yes, I've got 4 points I wish to make, if I may, please. You were asking, or executive members were sort of asking what the priorities should be and whether we agree with what they've got here. I mean, obviously, the overriding concern here is LGR. And I suspect that's going to be all-consuming, and a lot of the rest that we see in here will be lucky to get done. But I support the fact that LGR and getting the right decision for our residents going into that is really important. And I would link to that the asset transfers, because I think the towns and the town councils and parishes can benefit tremendously by some of the asset transfers that are being talked about. And I think that's the right thing to be doing, to bring many of the control of many of the assets that we have down to the lowest level that we can, and that's the parish and town councils. And I think it's important that that continues to go ahead. I'll be interested to see what the report says that will come to this committee regarding that. So I think that's a tremendously important thing, and I would put that absolutely number one. I do note the savings on page 281 of the report. It seems to imply that the collaboration savings with Guildford will continue, when quite clearly in the budget it said that they're not. So you might want to just make that clear in the report.
I'm happy to clarify that now. The savings that we've already made are locked in, and they will be continuing. In the budget, we are reversing out the additional marginal savings that we would have made this year, next year, 26, 27, were it not for LGR.
But that was £455,000 worth which came out. That's not marginal.
It's not marginal in the sense of the amount of money. It's marginal in the sense of the difference between where we are today and where we would have been in April next year.
Right, but there is a slight difference between what the corporate performance report says and you just might want to look at that.
Yeah,
and reword
I
it.
so we could argue about accounting terminology, marginal variances, and all that.
I think
sort
the
of stuff,
point
but,
Councillor Martin's saying is just to be, you might want to look at the wording of it. That's all. I think.
And then I've got two other points
Yeah.
to make, if I may.
You may.
No, thank you. I just wanted to ask what the status of the local plan is. We put a lot of time and energy into the local plan, and I was not particularly a supporter of putting the amount of energy that we have put into the local plan. What happens as we subsume ourselves into West Surrey? I'm not sure. I guess that it is important, is it not, that we continue with our local plan? And I'd just like a comment on that. If we need to continue the focus on that, is it going to get the focus that it deserves, despite the fact we've got LGR? The last point that I wanted to make was on Broadwater Park. There are one or two references in these reports to Broadwater Park. I was delighted to see a proposal in the budget, which I didn't comment on, of £605,000 to go into next year's capital. And I welcome that, and I welcome the progress. We've waited a long time for real progress on Broadwater. I hope that that is going to happen next year, and that will not be impacted by the transfer of assets to West Surrey. Thank you.
Councillor Merriweather, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, in reverse order. Yeah, me too on Broadwater Park. You know, it's a difficult site, but we've gone to a lot of trouble to engage with residents through our online system to hear what they would like done with the site. On the local plan, I'm not the portfolio holder, so you're going to have to deal with me paraphrasing it, but we have been told by the government in no uncertain terms, words of one syllable, that what they expect us to carry on preparing our local plan. On the 1st of April 27, there will not be a light switch moment where everything switches off. We will have, you know, a unitary that will have 6 local plans in various stages, and it will be the job of the unitary to bring them all together like everything else. But while that goes on and how long that takes, I've got no idea. But in the meantime, we will need to be as watertight as we possibly can be with our local plan.
Thank you. I mean, I think we've discussed this. I'm not sure. Have we got actually any recommendations or comments to make other than noting the capital strategy report? I mean, it sounds like we want more detail on the fairground development, but that's due to come to us anyway. Any other comment that we want to make? Peter, I note your comments. I'm not sure there are any.
I think we might want to ask the executive to note the comments that we made during the course of our discussion on the subject.
I'm happy with that. We're all happy. We're all nodding. Agreed. Assent, I confirm assent. I'm just, whatever, the right words is.
That was perfect.
Lovely, got it right. Good. So, shall we move on, please, to agenda item number 10. Thank you. Corporate performance report, Q2. I enjoyed going through this earlier. Last one. Was somebody going to introduce it? So sorry, I don't know any name.
Edward.
Edward will be introducing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors. The report in front of you is the quarterly performance report for Q2 2025-26, which is the period from July till September 2025. The report is located on pages 283 to 336 of the reports pack. Out of the 46 KPIs reported in this quarter, 17 have been rated green, 4 amber, 3 red, and 22 are presented for information only. As part of considering member feedback, we have made some stylistic changes to make the report easy to read. We have also implemented a trend line gradient box for some KPIs, which gives an indicator for the trend in performance over the last 4 quarters. Where possible, we have also benchmarked our KPIs against the other constituent councils of the West Surrey Unitary. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any that I'm able to. And if myself or other officers present are unable to answer them, I will respond with a written response from the relevant team. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's noted. Rather than go through each individual item, I'm just going to open this one up for questions or comments from committee members. Would anyone like to start? Councillor Barker-Lomax.
Thank you. So I have a couple, please. So R8 and R9. So this is freedom of information. So page 334. And then R9, data protection, subject access request, which is page 335. There's a fair level of red in there, but not just sort of blipping below the sort of the 85% mark, right down to 40%, 42%, I think, of freedom of information requests, and 50% of data protection subject requests not done on time. And I personally think that represents a relatively significant contingent liability for us. I don't see that adequately reported in audit and risk or in other places. I do think we have an issue there as a council that we're not reporting adequately against the contingent liabilities. That's just one point. And then the second thing I wanted to raise on section R6A, which is on page 330. So the number of level 1 complaints that have been dealt with on time, I think that's what the rag colouring is timely. Yeah, has shot up, which is fantastic. So from like 59% in Q2 up to 94, 96, 92, which is great. It looks great. But what the constituents that have been complaining to me about have said is that multiple times they've had complaints that have been dealt with that they're deeply unhappy about and have really tried to push through to say, no, you didn't deal with it. And I've personally been in that side of the cycle for 12 months, multiple times now. And I do just want to raise a concern, and I'm not casting aspersions, just a concern that we're sort of marking our own homework, saying the complaints are dealt with, and from my experience from constituents, they've not been dealt with.
Thanks. I mean, I certainly have experience of that myself. I don't know if obviously it's your role to comment on complaints, but maybe, do you have any comment to make? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor, for your question and your observations. So regarding complaints, very happy to take this offline and follow up with the service in particular if you do have any particular concerns regarding the council's complaints resolution. So yeah, as you note from the performance, it's increased significantly, mainly due to the now the councils, so both Guildford and Waverley, have dedicated complaints resource helping us to resolve complaints. as early as is possible. But very happy to follow up and perhaps where we haven't quite got that right, and we can pick that up with the service. And one thing I would also note as well, and perhaps we can bring into subsequent reporting, is level 2 complaints, and indeed when complaints go to the Ombudsman as well. That may well make its way to this committee, the Ombudsman report, or perhaps audit and risk, but that may well be something we can pick up for future reporting. Thank you.
I think we are looking at a review of the Ombudsman reports in the next meeting, actually, out of interest. But yeah, that would be interesting to have that as in the stats. Thank you. Anyone else have any other comments? Oh, Councillor Hess.
The section on recycling bins, food waste bins, etc., relates to a subcontract with Biffa, yeah?
Sorry, could you just remind me what page you're on?
289.
Thank you.
Actually, I don't know if it's 289 in a paper agenda, but it's 289 on my tablet.
Yeah, 290, 289. Continue, Councillor Hess. Thanks.
Thank you, yes. Going back some ONS committee meetings, in fact, back to when Carol was chairing, I had made quite vociferous complaints about one element of the Biffa contract, which is to do with street cleaning, particularly in towns. You know, we've got 4 major towns. I can only speak for Farnham. Hazelmere might be immaculate. Cranley might be superbly clean, litter-free. Godalming might be tremendous. But Farnham, it is not good. They are making efforts at the moment, to be fair, because we have been talking to the interim, don't know whether he's director or manager of environmental services, a gentleman called Martin Jones. He's been excellent. I can't compliment him highly enough. But what I had asked for going back in time were KPIs. So we've got some way of measuring how well they're doing, because we don't have that in here. It's completely missing. And if we don't know what the standard is, we can't really identify whether they're hitting that standard or whether they're falling below that standard. So I've just put a stake in the ground there for future ONSs that we really ought to have KPIs for Biffa performance, cleaning our towns, the 4 major towns in particular. I don't quite know what goes on with the villages, but certainly for Farnham, which is the highest footfall of the borough, we really need to know. So can I just leave that with you, Chair?
Yeah, thanks. Can I, do you know what, I'm going to get a comment from Councillor Barcolomes, and then I'll ask for some comment on that point, if that's all right. Oh, and Councillor Gale. Why don't we group it all together, all our queries, and then you can answer them all at once, if that's okay. So KPI benchmarking on street cleaning and clean towns. Next, Barcolome, Councillor Barcolomes. No separate comment is fine. I think let's group them together.
Yeah, thank you. So 2 further comments further to what I said earlier. So on page 326, so this is staff absence benchmarking. I notice a stark contrast between sickness levels in Spelthorne, or absence, staff absence in Spelthorne, like 3 to 4 times as much as Waverley. I'm just sort of flagging that. It seems to me that's a bit of a risk, or it certainly needs to be managed. You know, that's quite a stark contrast. Just one point. And then the second point, which I've raised many times, and maybe people could just remind me of where we're at. Page 314, tenant satisfaction, again, red forever. And when we last met as a committee, the officers were going to come back to us with their thoughts on post-tender competition of suppliers.
Making a note of that. So the next queries are about staff absences on page 326 and then tenant satisfaction. And then Councillor, do you know what? Let's do those two because then Councillor Gale, and would you mind responding on those first? And then we've got two more queries.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor, for your question. So Ed will pick up the street cleansing side. I think in terms of a staff sickness absence, we can have a look in terms of the underlying rationale for that at Spelthorne. I'm not familiar with I'm not familiar with Spelthorne as an organisation, sadly, but what you do tend to find, so Waverley has fewer services in-house, like so you tend to find refuse, cleansing, etc. You tend to have people suffer musculoskeletal injuries delivering those services, particularly working outside and lifting heavy equipment. So that may explain why Waverley's sickness is lower compared to some organisations which have those services in-house. But I don't have the information actually about Spelthorne's delivery of neighbourhood services, but very happy to take that away. We can have a look at that and liaise with colleagues at the other authorities in the West. And on tenant satisfaction, we've got Annalisa with us, so perhaps Annalisa, would you mind if I hand over that to you? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so as we've said before, it's not where we want it to be. I hope you can see that we have been making inroads in our performance with responsive repairs. You'll see that the number of jobs completed in target time, those are all moving in the right direction. The tenant satisfaction is a transactional survey, so there are all sorts of methodology things that I could quote and say it's quite difficult to get a good representation. I do know that over the last few months there has been a challenge in getting a response rate, so I have been questioning. We need to improve on that and also make sure that we're speaking to people as soon after the repairs happened as possible. Because sometimes by the time the information's gone through and then gone to our contractor, it could be 2 months since the repair had been completed. So it is an area we're working on. We do want to see an improvement in that area, but hopefully you'll have comfort that we have seen improvements in our other responsive repairs KPIs. So we are moving in the right direction.
Please do.
Thank you. And yes, I should have acknowledged the improvement, sorry. But when we've spoken about this at, I think, 3 committee meetings, which is that I think the team was going to come back with thoughts on ensuring that we do have competition post-tender of the supplier. I just wanted to follow up on that because I think we were going to get a report or suggestions.
Yeah, where were we with that? I don't have that as an action to come onto the agenda, but is that, I mean, do you want to comment on that, Annalisa, or?
Yeah, so I think we've spoken before about the fact that we go through a procurement process and we're in contract, and when it comes to the next phase for us to renew, either renew the contract or look to go back out for procurement for what we want in the future for responsive repairs, we'd take those considerations, your considerations into that specification. You've made it very clear that you'd like to see more competition within the delivery of responsive repairs, and that's something that we will look at. Both councils will be looking at the future of their responsive repair service over the next 12 months, so all that information will be fed into that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're going to wrap up on this bit in a minute. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, one final, because we have been round this loop a few times. So at one of the early committee meetings, we were told, look, we can't look at competition because it takes 18 months and it'll just take forever, so let's not bother. Then when we came back and we were still in the red, we said, look, this is serious. And we were told, no, we do get competition, but it was all pre-tender. So we said, no, we do need competition post-tender. And the team said you would come back with some thoughts on that. So if we're within 18 months of the contract expiring with the current supplier, then we should already be talking about it and looking at the plan. So I guess my question is, how far out is the expiry of the current contract? And surely we should be planning for this now. And I thought that's what we'd agreed.
I think we're agreeing, but I'll need to come back to you with the detail of where we're at with that piece of work. Okay.
Councillor Murray and then Councillor, was that on that specific point? And then Councillor Murray, can I have you in a minute? I'll do. Okay, great, thanks.
I thought you had appointed a consultant who was going to give you some recommendations. Is that right? On that? And so they are employed now?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me allow to ask this question. I believe in Candice's earlier report, there was a saving of nearly 900,000 in the housing department in staffing costs. Now, this obviously is a big question, and it's asked me, why the tenant satisfaction issues are, and also I also read that there was a delay in procurement of the bathroom or kitchen fit out company, and that was because you didn't have staff who could work on this procurement issue. So, if I was the tenant satisfaction and you're looking at that and you've got not enough staff, which is quite clearly you've underspent by nearly £1 million in staffing in the housing team, and that's having a knock-on fact that you can't deliver the procurement of contractors to be able to do the work. This is making the tenant satisfaction service. So I'm just wondering if those figures are relevant and whether you've got any comments on that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I just correct the number first of all, just to say 900,000 was the overall saving in the HRA. It's 165,000 for staffing, just to put that into context. Yeah.
That's fine. I thought it was a lot, but, but I was shocked when I read that. But so it's 165,000 underspend in housing. Sorry, thank you.
Annalisa, would you mind coming back on that? And then I think probably what Councillor Barker-Lomax, Councillor Lawton is alluding to is asking for a formal response on how the council and when you'll be looking at this procurement, competitive procurement issue, which we're repeatedly raising. Because I think at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're just hearing, oh, that will be considered in the future, but we're not hearing how or why. And I do know that it is a repeated concern by members of the committee. So would that be something that we could leave with you to come back to us with?
Yeah, absolutely. Come back to you with a future responsive repairs service. And just to say, you're absolutely right with challenges with procurement and staffing. We have had delays in delivering some of the programmes. I'm pleased to say that we've now got those through and we're starting mobilising those. And as you say, that all has an impact on our tenant satisfaction. And one of the things we want to make sure when we're doing the procurement and looking for contractors to come in and do that improvement work, we do involve our tenants in the assessment of those to make sure that they've got really good tenant communication skills and they're really putting tenants at the heart of the improvements. Thank you.
Thanks, Annalisa. So maybe by the next meeting, or if you could circulate in writing or at the next meeting, that would be really useful. Thank you. Would you like to come back? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just with regards to the question around street cleansing, that's something that we can probably investigate with the service area because they might be recording data that we can then bring into the report and create a KPI around it. But we just need to investigate it with the service area.
That's good news. Thank you. Does that answer your query? Thank you. Right, I've got two more and then I think we're going to wrap up, please, if that's okay. Did you get that in terms of...
I didn't get what the data was that you wanted circulated, sorry.
On the procurement question, Annalisa was just going to come back to us with more detail about competitive procurement, how that will be dealt with once we're no longer in contract.
Contract expires 27.
Right, by email before the next meeting.
By email or at the next meeting. Thank you. Right, I'm going to, Councillor Gale and then Councillor Martin. Thank you.
Just two comments really on what's been talked about. Street cleansing, they're all over Godalming like a rash. Every time I go in there, there's people in orange uniforms wandering up and down the high street picking up rubbish. So that's where they are. And on the tenant satisfaction, just to say the whole of my ward, that is one of the biggest problems, and they're not satisfied. And I think most of them have had enough. In fact, I know some in my ward have actually said they don't want the contractors in their house anymore. So it is a huge problem and we're not looking after them properly. And we need to do better. And we've been saying this for years. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Is that minuted, obviously? We'll make comment. Councillor Gale reiterated, obviously, concerns. Councillor Martin, then Councillor Rabini, and then I'm going to wrap this item up. Thank you.
Just on the repair of the whole side, I did ask when we were looking at the next meeting or the forward plan that we should be bringing that as a specific to the committee to report back on where we were. Supposedly we were making great progress, but it doesn't come out in this report in the way that it did before. Just two quick points from me. Firstly, on page 320, which is D8, affordable housing. On this page, we have Waverley and Guildford information. I have to say, I'm not really bothered what happens in Guildford. I don't know why Guildford information is there. What I would like to see is Guildford taken out. And then I would like to see another line in there which shows the number of affordable homes which were actually delivered by Waverley Borough Council. In the text, in the narrative, we're told that was 0 in Q2. If I remember rightly, it was 0 in Q1. I would like to see that on that graph and just see what is being provided directly by Waverley Borough Council. That's a request. And then just one other quick point on page 322, R1B, staff turnover by service area. There is one which does rather stand out, which is transformation, where 50% of the people have gone. Can you explain that? Is that because we're not doing transformation anymore, or what is it? Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite a small team, so it's like I think it was 2 people, 1 person's left. So
Nice, easy stat. I even get that myself. There we go. Yeah. So, Councillor Rabini.
Thanks, Chairman. I must say that I don't get the reflection that Councillor Gale gets about tenant satisfaction. I sit on the tenants board, and I would say everybody in that room is very positive about the way we treat our tenants. However, there is a problem, and that is, as you rightly identified, with the contractor on repairs. But please, let's run away with the thought that we don't look after our tenants. We do. They're very grateful. And yes, if we do get money from the HRA, please plough it back into the housing stock, because our housing stock is probably some of the best in the country. And we've got to make sure we carry that through, particularly mould and that sort of thing. We're tackling it. We're getting rid of it. So please make sure that when we get the new LGR, we carry that through for our tenants who rely on us.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Councillor Rabini. I think we can all see the ones on. Actually, I have no comment further. My brain's fried now, so I think unless there's any other points that anyone wants. Oh, Councillor Martin.
Quite separate. I presume we finished that item.
Yes, we have.
Okay, just one other point. 2 points. Firstly, will we get the Q3 report at our March meeting? So just our commitment that we will get that. Fine, I'm getting nodding heads. And also, whilst I'm thinking about something I meant to ask earlier, the review that we saw at 5:45 this afternoon, the slides, I just wondered whether Candice could send councillors the slide pack that she used for that meeting. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to ask that too, and I also forgot. So I therefore close this meeting.